After 10 years, Guild Wars 2 is nothing like the game that you originally played all those years ago. Looking at it from where we are now to where we were back then, it is incredible. Full disclosure, Guild Wars 2 is an older game. For MMOs, really, 10 years, that's a long time to be in the game.
It's been 84 years.
Yeah, it does kind of show its age. And I don't mean show its age like driving in the left hand with the blinker on. No, I mean more so that there are certain aspects of the game, especially the graphics, that make you say, yeah, I could see that. But overlooking the core experience of the initial 80 levels that you'll go through, the game is undistinguishable from its original release date. And seriously, if you are not playing Guild Wars 2 right now in 2023, then I am going to explain to you why you are missing out on one of the best experiences in the MMORPG market. Here we go. So when we first started playing Guild Wars 2, we had 8 original classes, and then they added the Revenant as well as the elite specializations. Now, if you played the core experience in Guild Wars 2, you had those 8 classes that were okay. I mean, you could mess around with the traits back and forth, you could do a couple of things, but they didn't really emphasize much other than what you were really experiencing as you level. There was no further exploration of your character.
Damn, boy, he's thick!
Now in Guild Wars 2, with being a more horizontal oriented progression system, where essentially you hit max level, you get some of the best gear, and then you're good. There's really nothing more to build on. Then enter in the Heart of Thorns expansion. Heart of Thorns expansion not only introduced the Revenant as a playable class, but they introduced elite specializations. Now, what are elite specializations? They are subclasses that are tied to each of the 9 professions that expand the gameplay even further. So for example, an engineer who was using pistols and a rifle leveling up.
Gunpowder, nitroglycerin, notepads, fuses, wicks, glue, and paper clips, big ones.
Now picks up a hammer and starts smacking people with electrified justice. Or the Guardian, which was a traditional, more defensive, team-oriented player, now gets to pick up a longbow and start blasting enemies at great distance. There's a lot more customization, and that's only just with the one expansion. Each of the other 2 major expansions have brought in an elite specialization for each of those 9 classes. Technically, if you look at it, there are 27 new classes that you can play right now in Guild Wars 2 with all of the expansions. And the best part, without a doubt, the best part is that once you've unlocked those elite specializations, you can change them whenever you want to. I can go from my staff-wielding core elementalist to a sword-swinging weaver or a hammer-smashing catalyst in a blink of an eye. All it does is take a couple of little buttons and boop, 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 I'm good to go. Now I'm starting to dole out some fiery justice. And that's the beautiful part. You can expand on these classes basically at your heart's content. And that also doesn't even hint at the great features that are coming with Secrets of the Obscure, where essentially all of those cool weapons that you get to utilize with your elite specializations now carry over to every other spec that you want to play. You can have a hammer as a core elementalist, which is awesome. That really starts calling back some of the Guild Wars 1 days where essentially you can pick up any weapon and start using it. That's the beautiful part of this game. And to even take it a step further, they also offer these class-specific weapons, or these elite specialization-specific weapons that really further emphasize the whole kind of like class identity. I tell you, there is so much customization with your individual character that it's not even remotely close to the way it was way back when Guild Wars 2 released. But what about those of you who only have the core expansion? Well, that is also something that I think should be considered. If you've been playing through the Guild Wars 2 experience, the main story, you'll find that a lot of it is rinse and repeat. It does show its age as far as being an older MMO.
Boring.
Not a whole lot has really changed with the core experience. A lot of the efforts have gone into the expansions, living worlds, things of that sort. What I will say, and something that you should be excited for, is that, of course, as the expansions have gone on, the experiences have gotten better. The storytelling has gotten a lot more in depth. There's been a lot more flashy features, which really, that's something that keeps my attention, I'll be honest with you. The core experience, however, is looking to have an upgrade as we are going forward. So one of the big pushes that Guild Wars 2 is looking to do, and specifically ArenaNet and how they are handling this game, is that they want to revamp the core experience. They really want to update and upgrade a lot of where these new players are landing, which is honestly a great thing.
Wait, that's illegal.
Especially because if you look at all the expansions and DLC, a lot of players aren't going to want to fork over $100+ for all of this just for them to only find out that it's like, oh, okay, well, you know, I may only like this game. I want to experience something really cool. Why is everything, all the fun things behind a paywall? And that's something that some players have even said to me and told me. So I'm trying to understand from their perspective. The core experience doesn't necessarily offer that really engaging, flashy experience, which I'm sure if you played like Final Fantasy, they stress the same thing. It's like, once you guys get through the core experience, the game does pick up. But again, this is a 10-year-old game, and you'll be surprised at how much you enjoy this game. So doubling down on that whole core experience of why it's slow, why a lot of players are like, I'm not too interested because it's a lot of rinse and repeat. They have sped up the leveling experience so much.
I don't think you have any idea how fast I really am.
That essentially you can probably get from level 1 all the way to level 80 in about like 5 hours of dedicated play. And let me explain. Guild Wars 2 has added in the adventure guide, which is essentially extra experience for just doing the normal thing. So applying damage to a target, killing so many targets, dodge rolling, viewing a vista, gaining a hero point, partying up, finishing and done. There's so many different little things that you will earn experience for that just essentially blast you through the levels with no issue whatsoever. I actually have a whole video that talks about how you can level up in Guild Wars 2 incredibly fast. Now, I will say that the core experience is great, and if this is your first time playing it, I would always recommend taking your time, because you only go through the core expansion for the first time once, so enjoy it. Do the exploration. Go out there and see all the cool things, but understand that if you feel that, okay, I've gotten a good grasp of this and I'm ready to move on, you can essentially blast through these levels very, very quickly. And no, you don't technically have to follow the story if you don't want to.
How dare you!
However, again, I recommend because it sets up the stage for most of all of the expansions. Maybe not even Secrets of the Obscure, but we'll get there. One of the biggest features in Guild Wars 2 that I think has slipped under the radar, which was something that a lot of, we'll say, players way back when Guild Wars 2 was originally released, is mounts. Now, mounts came along with the Path of Fire expansion, and they are still tied to the Path of Fire expansion. However, they have revolutionized how combat and, we'll say, how traversal of this open world has gone. So you have your core 4 mounts, which are the Raptor, the Springer, the Skimmer, as well as the Jackal. And then you have a secret unlock for the Griffin, which is one of the flying mounts. Essentially, it's a dive bomber on roids. Then you have the World versus World mount in the Warclaw on top of the Living World Season 4 mounts, which are the Roller Beetle and the Skyscale. And then, of course, the End of Dragons features the Siege Turtle, which is a 2-player mount, and essentially it's just mobile artillery, which is pretty cool. But the idea of transforming your exploration of this game from just running around and using waypoints to now being able to essentially cover great distances very quickly, they've also made it available for players to just use the Raptor mount and be able to traverse the core experience a lot faster, which is one of the big quarrels that, we'll say, new players have had. Is essentially like it takes forever for me to run from one point to another, when in a sense I can just hop on my Raptor and cover a great distance very quickly. And again, that further emphasizes that kind of like hustle, we'll say, through the core experience, so that you can get to the fun end game and a lot of the stuff that is there faster if, we'll say, the leveling experience isn't something that you enjoy. But the main point being is that the mounts have added such a unique flavor, not even talking about the mount skins or anything, or even the masteries that are tied to them, but the idea that you're able to just go through, traverse all of open world, interior and beyond, essentially on these mounts. It just adds a different quality of life item, quality of life feature that really was a big bar for a lot of players from enjoying this game. And 10 years ago, this game wasn't even on the forefront. Now it's an everyday experience. Not to mention the Secrets of the Obscure with the Skyscale. I mean, there's lots of reasons to really enjoy where Guild Wars 2 is now. So one of the big problems, we'll say, with Guild Wars 2 when it first released way back when, was that there really wasn't that much of a fleshed out endgame. I mean, yes, you had player versus player, you had world versus world, and dungeons. And fractals, I guess, in some sense. So that they did have their features. However, the problem that we ran into was specifically there wasn't anything that was on par with, say, like World of Warcraft, where they had raiding, they had these fleshed out, like, we'll say, well, they did have dungeons, I suppose, but the idea of it is that there wasn't a fleshed out, directed end game, and it was kind of like, hey, just go out, have fun, do what you got to, you know, go enjoy yourself. And a lot that turned off a lot of players because they didn't necessarily like the idea of having their own direction as far as what endgame is. Flash forward to today, there are more endgame features than I can count. The Guild Wars 2 has transitioned away from being that core, you know, leveling MMORPG to this whole entire chestnut of endgame content. There is so much that you can actually do, and it's actually ridiculous. You still do have your structured PvP, you still have world versus world, you still have fractals, but now you have strike missions, you have raiding, not to mention achievement hunting, legendary collections, mount racing, RP, and plenty of other endgame features that you can have as your main focus or your main goal. Now, counter to my first statement, this does kind of muddy the waters a little bit. There's a lot more to do and a lot less direction. However, most of the endgame content of whatever you are working on is usually targeted around what type of piece of gear you are either grinding on or what you're looking to achieve. So for example, I'm working on the Legendary Collection Vision, which requires me to do a whole bunch of stuff a part of Living World Season 4. That has been my focus for about the past month, where I've just been grinding and working for this one piece of item. Whereas you might have a player who really wants to get into Challenge Mode Strikes, which offer some of the hardest content in-game right now, PvE content right now. Or they could have a group that really focuses on high-level fractals and could be trying out the new Silent Surf fractal, which I actually heard is kind of like a tentacle disco. That's a different conversation altogether, but you get the point. Is that Guild Wars 2 has a defined endgame now. There are pillars that are surrounded by this. And the future of the game looks like it's aiming towards that, which I will cover here in a minute. Okay, so you have an idea of what you want to do, and you have all of these core experiences already done and over with, but what's the point of going back? What's the point of going and doing anything at the lower levels, especially if I'm able to just go ahead and blow through all my expansions? Let me just spend the time there, right? That's where all the players are. Wrong. Guild Wars 2 has a fantastic model that every map in this game has some type of relevance at max level, whether it be world bosses, whether it be legendary grinding, whether it be just map completion in general, which is a part of the legendary grind, is that you have to complete all the experiences across all of the core maps. The idea of it is that every map has something that will draw you back, or some reason for players to go back. And that's arguably one of the best things, because it adds hours of replayability. With the reset of everything daily, you essentially have a reason to go back and grind out these things or do these experiences again, just because there's usually a reason why you need to do it. Take, for example, the Sky Scale, which is one of the flying mounts in the game. You had to go back to a number of the core maps and do jumping puzzles and get to the end of really high up areas to collect for the Sky Scale achievements. And that's really interesting. Now they have integrated some of the older maps with something that was brought in new, which is incredible as far as a player's experience, because now we're able to go back and forth and do these different experiences, and we have a reason to. And that's what I will stress to you, is that I never view any of the maps in Guild Wars 2 as just well, there's no reason to go there, there's nothing to do there. There is something. They either have a really cool map-wide meta, they have a world boss, I'm looking at you, Twaddle. You will find that this game offers so much as far as just being able to log in, do something, and there's always a reason to do it every day. But if it's an MMORPG, where are all the players? Well, I'll be honest with you, there are players logging in every single day. Whether these players are just logging in for the couple of dailies, or they are spending hours grinding out a specific meta, or they're looking for groups for strike missions or for raids, there are players on every single day. And in the past month, there's been a marketed resurgence of Guild Wars 2 players coming back, because I feel that a lot of people, especially in the MMORPG market, are starting to realize how much value is behind this game, how much value Guild Wars 2 really brings to the table. Again, I bring to mind that sort of buy once, play forever experience, because they all have this infinite kind of replayability. All these players are coming back to Guild Wars 2, and I think it's because they realize how much value is in this game. While yes, it may not be as flashy or as, we'll say, out there as Diablo 4, it has remained a constant, stable portion of the MMORPG market for a while. So a lot of players look at that and they say, huh, I wonder why that is. And now with this new expansion that's coming out, they're lessening the barriers that some players have had. And not only with this new expansion bringing out some of the major features that players want to do, however, they're lowering the barriers on that. So there's going to be an open world legendary gear set that you can earn for your characters. The Sky Scale, which is one of the best mounts in game, one of the flying mounts in the game, is apparently going to be streamlined, and it's going to be a lot less difficult to earn it. However, Guild Wars 2 has done it great because they're not devaluing what you spent your time and effort in Living World Season 4, so that you actually have a reason to do it there as well as doing it here. There is a lot of reasons why players are excited, and I personally am very, very excited for it. And of course, that brings on the future of Guild Wars 2 and why investing your time in it is going to be nothing but at your benefit. So Guild Wars 2 has announced their new expansion, Secrets of the Obscure, and as I've already explained, it is going to offer some of the legendary gear in the expansion, and you're able to earn it in just open world content. You don't need to do structured PvP, world versus world, or raiding to earn this legendary gear. And for those of you who don't know, legendary gear is essentially the best quality of life items that you can earn. They don't necessarily have any better stats than their counterpart, which is ascended gear. However, you can change not only the look of the gear, you can socket them with different items and take them out without any penalty, as well as being able to change the stats that are on these pieces of gear at free will. You don't have to wait. It's essentially, you earn that. It's in this one little slot in your inventory. You can take that out and put it on any character who can use that particular piece of gear, which is awesome. Now they're trying to make it a little bit more viable for players to earn this legendary piece of gear because guess what? Players want that accessibility, but they also don't necessarily want to spend hundreds of hours grinding out legendary gear, in which it is true. It does take quite a while to earn legendary gear. Not only that, but they have stressed that this is an emphasis of how their expansions will go on from now on. They're going to be a little bit smaller than, say, End of Dragons or Path of Fire or Heart of Thorns. However, they're going to come out more frequently and offer new features faster, which is something that a lot of players have all really pointed out as a big problem with Guild Wars 2, which is content droughts. Essentially, there's been long periods of time where there really hasn't been anything that has come out. So players are more interested now in this game because of the future that Guild Wars 2 is bringing. And I, for one, am very excited. Not only as a content creator, but just as a player myself. Like, I want to know that the efforts that I'm putting into the game right now won't disappear in 5 years because the servers are shutting down. Overall, Guild Wars 2 has changed so much, and it has changed so much for the better, that I honestly believe that if you are not playing this game, if you're not spending your time here, I think you're missing out. I really do. I think you are falling behind the curve, in my opinion. But I leave that up to you. However, let me go ahead and stress that the game is your sandbox. Go and play it the way that you want to, because guess what? Nobody really enjoys playing a game where they feel forced to do anything. If you are new to Guild Wars 2 and you're just hitting level 80, check out this video here that's going to show you my personal opinion of what you should do when you hit max level in Guild Wars 2. Stay caffeinated, folks.